Bank of the Bahamas is allegedly downsizing. It is reported that a number of persons from both the Village Road branch and the Harold Road branch were laid off today. Minister of Finance Peter Turnquest said he knew nothing of the layoffs as they do not meddle in the day-to-day decisions of the bank.
When we did our last operation with the Bank of the Bahamas and appointed this new board, we told them, we committed to them and committed to the Bahamian people that we will not allow politics to get involved in the operation of the bank because we've seen where that has gotten us. And so to the extent that they've made any moves, which I say again, I'm not familiar with it, I've been away traveling as you know, to the extent that it has happened, I am sure that it is a deliberate, considered action to make the bank profitable, turn the circumstances around.
He added that the government is only there to guide as an investor, and this layoff matter is one for either the chairman or labor minister. He said the reality is if action was taken, it was only to move the company forward.
Is that sometimes you have to go back to go forward. At the Bank of the Bahamas is one of those circumstances where in order for it to have an opportunity to grow and to grow without continued support from the government of the Bahamas, it's got to do those kinds of things that an entrepreneurial institution will do in order to ensure profitability.
The last thing Bahamians want to hear is that the government is borrowing more money, especially considering the two resolutions it passed in the House of Assembly shortly after taking office last May that total some $722 million. That's $400 million to pay off old debts and $322 million for the commitments this fiscal year. But according to Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance Peter Turnquest, that's only new debt.
That the majority of the bond offering that was done yesterday is to meet commitments that we met in place, to roll over existing debt that we incurred to pay those bills. So there's no new debt in respect to that.
That bond offering totaling some $750 million at a rate of 6% and is a result of what the Deputy Prime Minister deemed a successful 5-day roadshow meeting with strategic investors and potential new interests out of London, New York, Boston, and Los Angeles. The order booked closed with indications in excess of $2.8 billion and with more than 200 investors participating.
It is to be repaid in 3 equal annual installments, commencing on November 21st, 2026, and with a final maturity on November 21st, 2028. The 6% yield is equivalent to a spread of 362.1 basis points above the U.S. Treasury's 10-year benchmark bond.
Now, with all this talk of how successful the roadshow was, Shadow Minister of Finance Chester Cooper questioned if the country's fiscal affairs were really as bad as the government made it out to be. To that, Minister Turnquest responded to this.
The truth is that the robust demand for this administration's bond offering hinges upon the fact that the investment community has the confidence in the words and deeds of this administration. During the roadshow exercise we just completed, the investment community asked the hard questions of the Bahamian delegation and left confident that this government is serious about prudent fiscal management and accountable use of the people's resources. Sentiments that the other side could never, ever boast of.
In fact, the minister said while on the road, he and his team had to defend the former administration.
And as a nationalist, I will not allow anybody to speak ill of the government of the Bahamas.
Now, in order to ensure there are resources available to meet future debt service obligations, come the next budget, the government plans to establish what's called a sinking fund to cover the principal payments arising from the new borrowing. Now, a public roasting for the National Security Minister following his comments in the wake of a Haitian sloop being discovered this past weekend on the shoreline of Adelaide Village, a stone's throw away from the Defense Force Coral Harbor base. Though big enough to hold some 250 people, there was no sign of suspected migrants, leaving many dumbfounded as to how this could have happened and who's to blame. Minister Marvin Dames argues that it's impossible to cover the entire nation, adding that it's humanely impossible to identify every vessel that comes through the chain. But the Progressive Liberal Party's not buying it. In fact, PLP leader Philip Davis in a release says he finds the excuse unacceptable. He goes to point out that the landing of an illegal sloop just 3/4 of a mile from the base was a significant security breach, begging the question of what other implications does this have on the vulnerability of the force and the country. Mr. Davis is calling on the minister to not only accept full responsibility for such failures, but launch an immediate investigation to avoid it from reoccurring. Minister Dames yesterday told reporters that efforts are being made to beef up security. This includes new technology. However, he accepts that even this is not going to prevent any illegal activity from taking place. Stay with us. There's more news straight ahead.
This segment of the news was brought to you by Alive.